Welcome again to Phantom Astronaut. Today we're going to be doing a trailer react to the new Wolfman trailer. Let's take a look at it in terms of folklore, subtext, all that other good stuff. Ready? All right, here we go. No pre-watch, no pre-watch. Okay, we've got a man who looks like he's dazed. Maybe he is in a car. It looks like maybe headlights, maybe somebody else is in a car. Truck of some kind. Oh, there we go. All right. So it looks like we have gotten some kind of a car accident. Now, where do I think this is going? I mean, obviously this is going to be some sort of a rural route, a rural story. Lately, Wolfman stories, Wendigo stories, those types of things have always been very connected to the forest. So I'm assuming that since this is some sort of a truck or a moving truck, maybe this is something that happens when a family is on their way to start a new life. I'm guessing maybe some kind of thing out of the way, getting away from the city, that sort of thing. They were run off the road. This all feels like it was taken very much from the scene in Jurassic Park where the Tyrannosaurus attacks and the Jeep goes over the cliff. All right, so something maybe attacked the truck, or they swerved to avoid it, and maybe they're trying to just take refuge in this house. Already I can see some connections to things like Dog Soldiers. If anybody saw Dog Soldiers, that's a early 2000s Scottish picture where a group of military personnel are out on some sort of an exercise, and what happens is, spoiler alert, it turns out they were hunting werewolves, and there's a small sort of enclave of a werewolf family that's been living out in the middle of nowhere, and these soldiers are sort of taken down in what's traditionally called, from a screenplay perspective, a 10 Little Indians plot. And of course you have this sort of zombie plot-esque situation where one of the soldiers has been bitten or compromised, and you have to figure out what to do with him before he becomes a threat, and so on and so forth. So my assumption in this is that they were involved in some kind of an incident. Obviously, the name is Wolfman, so maybe there's some sort of an incident that happened with a Wolfman. Maybe they swerved to avoid him on a road, her on a road. Maybe there's a pack of them. I don't really know. The Howling series is kind of interesting in this way, too, because werewolf mythology over the last maybe 30, 40, 45 years has tended to revolve not so much around a solitary killer, but around a wolf pack sort of construct. So if you look at The Howling, which from the 70s really looked at the California wellness and alternative spirituality movements, human empowerment movement, that sort of thing, through the lens of horror, in this idea that they up here in the California coast, there was this, series of things like communes and stuff like that in the sort of decade past the Summer of Love, and a lot of things that sprung up for that were fear from the mainstream. There was still the Manson family in the zeitgeist, and you have these sort of like swooshy, hippy-dippy sort of werewolves who have created a spiritual guru compound, and that's how they lure people up to them. And a reporter who's investigating a series of murders in Los Angeles is then drawn up there, where he realizes that there's an enclave of werewolves. So similar thing to Dog Soldiers, where there's an enclave. So I'm wondering if this Wolfman movie follows that recent tradition, which is sort of drastically different from like Lon Chaney's Werewolf of London, where it's a lone wolf that's kind of using a city as a hunting ground. So I'm wondering if maybe this film is going to follow that other narrative where there's a group, a pack, a family of werewolves, and they are constrained to a rural area, almost in the tradition of folk horror. So it looks like they're trapped in this house currently. Let's see what happens. Okay, so they say they were attacked. Okay, so it looks like the father was bitten. Yeah, so he's turning. So this follows the motif, like I said earlier, of Dog Soldiers, which really borrows very heavily from zombie movies, especially the Romero zombie movies, where somebody is unwittingly infected with a supernatural sort of pathogen, a contagion, a social contagion in the subtext. Maybe this could be metaphorical for alcoholism, drug abuse. It could be, being touched by something that's inherent. Usually, when it's constructed in such a way where it's the patriarch, someone is afflicted in a way that reflects a real life connection to something that's harmful. So, if you look at The Shining, Stanley Kubrick's Shining, of course, based on Stephen King's novel, where both of the source material and the film that Stephen King sort of disagrees a little bit with, they find common ground in the fact that Jack Torrance, who was played by Jack Nicholson, is dealing with alcoholism and the fact that he's done something violent, either deliberately or accidentally, to his son Danny because of his addiction to alcohol. So if you carry that horror tradition over into this werewolf trope, where we have a couple of elements that are going for us. We have the zombie trope, the I've been bitten by something. Maybe it's metaphorical for something that's internal, a rage, or something that a lot of these films tend to have a lot of daddy issue stuff that sort of manifests through them. And at the same time, you have that maybe it's a wolf pack sort of enclave sort of thing, like Dog Soldiers or The Howling. And we've got these great isolation shots. It looks like he's going through it. So let's continue. This is also very similar to the Wendigo movie that came out a couple of years ago, where you had to kind of lock up the family member to keep the Wendigo transformation at bay. Mm-hmm. This whole thing, like what I said earlier about an abusive father, I want to be very clear that this is also a trope that carries through a lot of werewolf fiction, again, in that era. So if you looked at something like Silver Bullet, which is a really, really cool werewolf film, check that out. It's from the 1980s. There's a wheelchair-bound kid, and the events kind of unfold in a small town, and the Wolfman is there. And the Wolfman, again, is very metaphorical to, that kind of brutality. There was another werewolf film in the 90s that is kind of, it's escaping me at the moment, but it might have been, I'm going to have to look this up, because it was something where I remember this kid went outside and, had urinated on something. I saw it in the movie theater when I was a kid. Hold on. Werewolf movie 90s. And the father was an abusive cop. Here we go. I think it might have been Full Eclipse. No, Bad Moon. Here it is, 1996, Bad Moon. So I saw it as a teenager. And yeah, this was kind of interesting because it involved the father being a police officer. So you have this other element of like authority, and oftentimes you look at like police officers as having an abuse of authority, whatever side of the political spectrum that you're on. You know, I know there's a big campaign for like, back the blue and all this stuff in the wake of the last couple of years on the conservative side of things. But where I grew up, the common ground was that you were always annoyed at police overreach. You were always annoyed when a cop pulled you over for some like BS reason. You were always annoyed when a cop wanted to search whatever. I can't tell you how many like good old boys and stuff used to come around places where I used to work, and they would complain about cops, the same as people on the left would come in and they would complain about cops. Cops were always, you know, this force of the oppression or representation of government overreach or whatever it was. But again, you know, this was the 90s, so it was like a lot of like, you had things going on like Ruby Ridge, and you had these like sovereign citizen movements and things that were kind of out there. So the rebellious streak was always kind of like Outlaw Country, and Johnny Cash and all these guys were always, you know, kind of like, you know, the cops are trying to keep you down, right? So you combine that with the idea that one can kind of transform into this werewolf creature, this unstoppable force that, you know, has behind it this level of authority and energy. So that was kind of a cool thing about Bad Moon. Check that out. So it looks like this might be something similar where, you know, you've got the patriarch of the family and he's undergoing this metamorphosis. So he's sort of an authority figure here. Let's see what else is going on. A lot of this is, let me back up a little bit. This kind of lighting, when I was in film school, what this would be called was sort of like Godfather lighting, because it's, you know, this very overhead, high contrasty pools of light that people would walk through. And it's kind of cool. Like, I'm not sure how they composed this, but it's really an interesting use of color. You don't typically sort of look at the cinematography in films like this, but the color palette is an interesting choice. Composition as well. I didn't see Invisible Man. If anybody saw Invisible Man, write in the comments, tell me if I should take a look at it or not. I didn't see it. It's kind of cool with the mom doing the thing with the gun. She's kind of got this like Ellen Ripley kind of thing going on. This, like, you know, mom takes charge kind of toughness. This also has a strange connection a little bit to another Stephen King film, Cujo. If anybody knows that film, Cujo, where the mom and the kid are trapped in the car by the dog with rabies. This last act of Cujo has elements that I find some similarities here with. So the last act of Cujo is like, you know, the mom realizes that the kid is going to be dehydrated and they're out of food and there's nothing else that they can do. They're going to pass away if they aren't able to overcome this dog. And so she just decides to risk it and goes all out. And that always kind of reminded me a little bit of like Ripley from Aliens. And, you know, I really like that tough mom kind of Terminator 2 kind of James Cameron-esque female character. So it's kind of cool that it looks like maybe that's the direction they're going with the female lead in this. Yeah, see right here, like taken from Cujo, the car's broken down, dog man is coming after them. I love this kind of stuff. This is very cool. Got some jump scare coming up. Yeah, jump scare. There was. It's kind of interesting how that last shot looks. I've seen that before a couple of different times. Reminds me a lot, not this one, not the kind of scratchy font. Yeah, that with the hand coming through. I can't remember exactly what film that I've seen the arm coming through like that for. I know I've seen a couple of action movies, but in the horror genre, I haven't. Is it something from one of those Vin Diesel things like Chronicles of Riddick or something like that? But there you have it, Wolfman. I don't know if I need to see that in IMAX. But what I will say about what I saw is that everything that I discussed seems to be firing on all cylinders here. I obviously don't have any skin in the game in terms of telling you to go see it or don't go see it, but I'm happy to kind of give you all the callbacks and stuff to this. The Wolfman mythology, really the Middle European, Central European mythology that dates back, maybe even predates things like ancient Greece. It wasn't necessarily Wolfman, but there was always this idea of a man being able to transfigure into an animal, the animalistic side of man, which if you take a look at my Robbie Williams Better Man video that I put up recently, we talk about the trope of the ape man, the the de-evolution of man being a deep fear, the idea of succumbing to our more base nature. And, that can be a very, very scary thing to deal with in ourselves. So watching it as, a bigger guy, I can take a look at this and I can go, wow, the idea of like losing control, right? The idea of like not being able to regulate my emotions and my physicality in such a way where I would end up hurting somebody. That's a fear. And a guy can watch this and understand that. Women who, have experienced, really, most women in our society can have some level of relation to the idea that, you think you know somebody and then they have a dark side. And, now you have to protect yourself, you have to protect your loved ones from somebody that's more physically imposing than you. So that's, part of what works in those James Cameron things that I've talked about, like the Terminator 2, Alien, stuff like that. Those great female protagonists really, bring that to light. And you can root for them as the dude, and you can be scared of it as the guy, looking at it from that perspective, that subconscious kind of subtext of it. Will I check it out? Maybe. If any of you check it out, hit me up in the comments. Tell me what you thought about it. It comes out in a couple of days. I've been Phantom Astronaut, and thanks for going along with this trailer react with me. I'll see you out there.